Chapter 10. How the strength of all states should be measured. In examining the character of these principalities, it is necessary to consider another point, namely, whether the prince has such a position as to be able, in case of need, to maintain himself alone, or whether he has always need of the protection of others. The better to explain this, I would say, that I consider those capable of maintaining themselves alone who can, through abundance of man or money, put together a sufficient army and hold the field against anyone who assails them. And I consider to have need of others those who cannot take the field against their enemies, but are obliged to take refuge within their walls and stand on the defensive. We have already discussed the former case, and will speak in the future of it as occasion arises. In the second case, there is nothing to be said except to encourage such a prince to provision and fortify his own town, and not to trouble about the country. And whoever has strongly fortified his town, and as regards the government of his subjects, has proceeded as we have already described and will further relate, will be attacked with great reluctance. For men are always averse to enterprises in which they foresee difficulties, and it can never appear easy to attack one who has his town well guarded and is not hated by the people. The cities of Germany are extremely liberal, have little surrounding country, and obey their emperor when they choose. And they do not fear him or any other potentate that they have about them. They are fortified in such a manner that everyone thinks that to reduce them would be tedious and difficult, for they all have the necessary moats and bastions, sufficient artillery, and always keep in the public storehouses food and drink and fuel for 1 year, beyond which, to keep the lower classes satisfied and without loss to the public, they have always enough means to give them work for 1 year in these employments, which form the nerve and life of the town. And in the industries by which the lower classes live, military exercises are still held in reputation, and many regulations are in force for maintaining them. A prince, therefore, who possesses a strong city and does not make himself hated, cannot be assaulted, and if he were to be so, the assailant would be obliged to retire shamefully. For so many things change that it is almost impossible for anyone to hold the field for a year with his armies idle. And to those who urge the people, having their possessions outside and seeing them burnt, will not have patience, and the long siege and self-interest will make them forget their prince. I reply that a powerful and courageous prince will always overcome those difficulties by now raising the hopes of his subjects that the evils will not last long, now impressing them with the fear of the enemy's cruelty, now by dexterously assuring himself of those who appear too bold. Besides which, the enemy would naturally burn and ruin the country on first arriving, and in a time when men's minds are still hot and eager to defend themselves, and therefore the prince has still less to fear, for after some days, when people have cooled down, the damage is done. The evil has been suffered, and there is no remedy, so that they are the more ready to unite with their prince, as it appears that he is under an obligation to them, their house having been burnt, and their possession ruined in his defense. It is the nature of man to be as much bound by the benefits that they confer as by those they receive, from which it follows that, everything considered, a prudent prince will not find it difficult to uphold the courage of his subjects, both at the commencement and during a state of siege, if he possesses provisions and means to defend himself.